midnight! Finally! Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere in the month of May in '66. Where is the man who remembers that famous single, Kicks? Hey, I'm not finished yet! Okay, that was probably not the smartest way to integrate the poem Paul Revere's Ride, but since I'm talking about an album referencing the title, I thought I'd take a shot. Welcome to Murdoch's Music Minute. Never ever would I have thought to be talking about Paul Revere and the Raiders on this channel, let alone twice. And even though I was probably the only one who had fun with the first video, I'm really curious to move on to this band's next album. We are still in the year 1966, the same year that the predecessor album, Just Like Us, had been released. Paul Revere and the Raiders are at the height of their popularity in the USA, so the next album came out only 4 months later, and its title clearly alludes to the patriotic poem about Paul Revere riding through American towns to warn his comrades, his patriots or Minutemen, of an impending British attack from the sea. I'm sure Americans are very aware of this poem from English lessons or history lessons in school. It's nothing that Europeans are very familiar with. I certainly wasn't aware of the connection to this poem before I prepared this episode. Do Paul Revere and the Raiders warn their listeners of an approaching doom, or do they spread patriotic messages? Let's go through the album and find out. On the album's cover, we find the band in this strange old house or cellar. Some fans claim it could also be a church, holding lit candles, so they are obviously waiting for something to happen. It's obviously a nocturnal setting. Maybe they are waiting for the signal to get ready for the British or to attack them. Maybe they are just waiting to go on stage or for a late pizza delivery. It's almost a bit of a moody atmosphere for a mid-60s pop rock album, but it's also evident that a little bit more thought went into this cover photograph compared to earlier album covers. But as was so common in those days, we again get a list of all the song titles featured on this album and a huge hype ad, a hype text under the title saying featuring Kicks, which was the big single from this album, and Kicks also starts the midnight ride with Paul Revere and the Raiders. Kicks is an outlier for 1966, not musically, but lyrically, because while most of the pop and rock bands were getting a bit wilder and into the psychedelic spirit of the counterculture around 1966, Paul Revere and the Raiders sing a clear anti-drug song here. The song was written by external songwriters, the couple Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil. They had already started their career in the early 60s and, among other songs, were the authors of, for example, On Broadway, performed by the Drifters, or You've Lost That Loving Feeling, recorded by the Righteous Brothers, and also We Gotta Get Out of This Place, which became a hit single for The Animals. So these were really established big names in terms of pop songwriting. Kicks was initially also intended as a single for the Animals, but it was turned down by Eric Burdon, and one can understand why if you know the sound, the albums, and the flower power messages of Eric Burdon and the Animals in the late 60s. But Paul Revere and the Raiders were offered the song, and they are the perfect band for this kind of material. The lyrics are actually quite thought out, addressing the need to find ever stronger kicks to face the world, but that, of course, will not change the roots of personal issues or unhappiness behind all that. And I quote from the lyrics, "That road will lead you nowhere. I'm gonna help you find yourself another way." Maybe the beginnings of psychotherapy in pop music. That kind of attitude, of course, made the band look a bit outdated or conservative in the second half of the 60s. Clean-cut music for young, wholesome people, just like the music of the Beach Boys, who were yet to drop good vibrations on an unsuspecting public. Nonetheless, Kicks became Paul Revere and the Raiders' biggest hit of that decade, making it to number 4 in the US and reaching number 1 in Canada. And I'm sure if they hadn't released it, Kicks would have become a hit single for the Monkees, who I will have to mention again a little later. Kicks is a charming example of mid-60s beat music with jangly guitars, a thumping beat, and a catchy chorus.
Don't it seem like kicks just keep getting harder to find? And all your kicks ain't bringing you peace of mind. Before you find out it's too late, girl, you better get straight. No, but not with kicks. You just need...
The second track is an original written by the guitarist Drake Levin and drummer Mike Smith, who also sings this song, I believe. Also a notable sign of a development step for the band. Most of the material on Midnight Ride was written by the various band members themselves. There's Always Tomorrow is a fun garage pop rock track with a driving strummed electric guitar, a mildly oriental guitar solo, and solid vocals. A song about picking yourself up and looking ahead after a heartbreak.
I have no fear, the pain has cleared, so I can smile tonight. 'Cause there's always tomorrow. Always tomorrow.
Then there's a real change of pace on the album, a genuine ballad by this band. Written by singer or main vocalist Mark Lindsay and Paul Revere, Little Girl in the Fourth Row is a gorgeous 60s pop ballad. I mean, we are really talking about Beach Boys or Mamas and the Papas level of songwriting here. A brief glimpse at a girl during a show from the stage is turned into a lush, very melodic tune.
And now I found her, but it don't do no good for me. 'Cause she's that little girl in the fourth row.
Ballad of a Useless Man is next, could be about me, and it is a great garage beats pop rock track. Paul Revere's organ hops along while Mark Lindsay sings about a life on the downslope, great dreams and plans that failed, which is also not your usual lyrical content in the boy meets girl 60s pop world. Despite that rather bleak lyrical content, the song is fun and energetic and was again written by lead guitarist Drake Levin.
Yes, I was gonna live in a big old house. I was gonna be a king, yeah. Now I really got the shakes. I can't hardly walk for fear.
With the next song, we get to I Am Not Your Stepping Stone. Wait, wasn't that a hit for the Monkees? But Paul Revere and the Raiders were a bit earlier with their version. It's a pity they did not release it as a single. Both versions are actually quite similar. Maybe the one by the Monkees has that little bit more oomph and production budget to it, but yeah, a good track. A garage pop rock classic among 60s fans, notable for its repetitive and equally catchy structure, and a change into frantic double time at the end.
Not your stepping stone. Stepping stone. Stepping stone. I'm not your stepping stone.
We are at track 6, and that's another self-penned one. There She Goes. A little honky-tonky, slightly country-infused romp about a loveless woman. And now we start with side 2 of the album and the longest song on the record with 3 minutes and 27 seconds. All I Need Is You is a slightly dramatic and mildly psychedelic mid-tempo track. It even has a 3/4 break and is a comparatively more complex song from the band. And yet it's not necessarily one of my faves, if I'm totally honest. Get It On, a writing collaboration between Drake Levin and bassist Phil Vogue, I think, is a bluesy stomper. Vogue also sings the song, and the message here is live your life, just do what you want to do. Simple, fun, effective, and with a neat little guitar solo.
Get it on, get it on, get it on.
Next up is Louie Go Home, which pretty much continues the garagey 60s rock sound and once more employs the break that changes meter from 4/4 to 3/4. This is an ironic sequel to the garage classic Louie Louie and was written by Paul Revere and Mark Lindsay. The band had already released a version of Louie Go Home in 1964, but now updated it for this 66 album, re-recorded the song to make it sound a little bit more hip. Yeah, definitely a nice song, maybe a little bit on the filler side, but decent. 2 very short songs end the album. Take a Look at Yourself, a romantic but very upbeat ditty that could also have been done by the Monkees. Birdsian jangle guitars and piano instead of organ are the main features of this song. And then the lush, dreamy instrumental Melody for an Unknown Girl. It has a loungy atmosphere with a cheesy saxophone. It's actually all very cheesy, but it's alright to tuck this at the end of the album. Paul Revere and the Raiders finished their midnight ride without any bigger missteps. The album was produced again by Terry Melcher, so never change a winning team. basically the same personnel as on the album before. And Midnight Ride was also, again, quite a big success. It charted at number 9 in the USA, not quite as high as Just Like Us, but who cares? Basically, I would argue, or in my opinion, Midnight Ride with Paul Revere and the Raiders is the stronger of those two albums, and those are the two albums that are usually referred to as the most popular ones by this band. It's a solid 60s pop rock album, to stress that term once more, really from beginning to end. Maybe it's also a bit more coherent or more creative due to the lack of cover versions that still dominated the Paul Revere and the Raiders albums in the years before. There's nothing too challenging about this music. The band didn't have any intentions to make a great artistic statement. Bands like Paul Revere and the Raiders were there to entertain a crowd and just give people a good time with solid, catchy, and upbeat tunes. And that's what is perfectly delivered with this album. And releases like this one are a good example for me why the music of the mid 60s or 60s pop music in general, before it all became very trippy and psychedelic, and before heavy rock started to dominate, why this kind of music simply makes me feel good. It's music that makes you instantly happy, always provided you like the charm of this seemingly more innocent or more naive kind of rock music. But I think it's not music that should be looked down upon, or that should be, get treated like unimportant flavor of the month from the dim and distant past. It's worthwhile to sometimes go back to this kind of music. As I've already mentioned, this is also very much in the vein of what the Monkees did. I don't know if there was a big competition between Paul Revere and the Raiders and the Monkees. The Monkees came a little bit later, but in 66, 67, I guess, were big rivals for airwave time and chart positions to Paul Revere and the Raiders. Paul Revere, unlike the Monkees, were a real band. The Monkees famously were a casted band, really put together for a television series, while Paul Revere and the Raiders were a band that had formed more naturally, but afterwards had a career boost because they were discovered by television and were featured regularly on television, but they were not a product of television. So maybe that's the big difference between Paul Revere and the Raiders and the Monkees. But the Monkees, of course, had huge hit singles, and history, I think, has been very kind to the Monkees, and their image, their role in pop history has been improved ever since. I think these days the Monkees are, at least in some circles, a critically at least respected, if not acclaimed, band. Paul and the Revere and the Raiders probably as well, but they are not talked about as much as bands like the Monkees. I already said in my review about Just Like Us that the band is hardly an issue or is hardly mentioned in Europe. And to not let there be any misunderstandings, their albums are not flawless masterpieces or overlooked iconic 60s classics. They are just good, lightweight entertainment. But sometimes that's maybe exactly what you want or what your ears need. There would be some changes in the lineup shortly after this, and thus Paul Revere and the Raiders never really fully continued this progress as a band that had arguably started with Just Like Us, but at least the follow-up album, Spirit of 67, I think is quite worthwhile if you are interested in more Paul Revere. But it's late, so if you enjoyed this video, consider liking it, subscribing, or recommending my channel to other music fans, and maybe you'd like to stay tuned for more Murdoch Music Minutes. Good night.